Unfiltered, the official Sunderland AFC podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to SAFC Unfiltered, brought to you and sponsored by Alpha Security. My name is Frankie Francis. I'm joined as ever by former player Danny Collins. How are you doing, Danny?
I'm good, Frankie. Thanks very much.
So today we are off to the Academy of Light once again, and this time we're going to speak to a brand new sporting director at the club, SPEAKMAN. Have you ever worked under a sporting director, Danny?
I don't think I have, no, to be honest, Frankie. I know that they've sort of come about, haven't they, the last few years. It seems to be more of a trend, really, bringing them in to work alongside managers. But no, I haven't, so I think this will be the first experience we'll get of that at Sunderland. Yeah,
it'll be good to hear what he's all about, what exactly the job covers, and who he'll be working with in the role. Of course, we've had a busy couple of weeks at the Stadium of Light with the new head coach appointed as well. It's all happening, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. A lot of chopping and changing. I think results haven't been going as we'd like, and where we're sat in the table. So yeah, ultimately it comes about, and there's usually a change of manager, and that's what's happened. And say Lee Johnson coming in now, hopefully he can turn us around and get us going in terms of results, and obviously getting back into the playoff spots and pushing for them automatics.
Right then, we're going to head over to the academy for a socially distanced chat with the new sporting director of Sunderland Football Club, SPEAKMAN. Welcome to SAFC Unfiltered, Sunderland sporting director, SPEAKMAN. How are you doing, Christian?
Good morning, guys. I'm doing really well, thank you.
You've been in the job a few days now. How have you found it?
I found it's felt like a lot longer than a few days. Been some long days in there, but at the same time some very productive days. I think first of all, I've had an incredible welcome from people at the club and people around the club and the supporter base, which has obviously taken me back a little bit. So from that perspective, that's obviously very kind of people. I also understand that you get judged on your performance of your job, so hopefully people will be open-minded to what we're trying to do and the slight change in the philosophy and strategy, and hopefully that will bring some success.
Yes, we'll come around to all of that, but you've had a good chance to have a wander around the facilities, I'd assume, in those couple of days, and see the physical infrastructure of the club. Are you impressed with that?
I think the infrastructure, both here and at the Stadium of Light, is incredible. I did a couple of laps this morning at the Academy of Light trying to find the coach's dressing room again, so burning a few extra calories on the route to finding my kit. But I think that's one of the things which attracted me to this type of project is the fact that you've got all this already in place. I think obviously if you're at a club that's looking to get this type of infrastructure, physical infrastructure, it's going to be some number of years to do that. I think you have to take your hat off to the guys who put this together 17, 18 years ago, because it's been very well future-proofed. Obviously everyone who comes into this type of environment want to have their preference on what it looks like and how it feels. And I'll obviously try to put my standpoint from a football perspective, but in collaboration with obviously everyone here to try and make it the best working environment possible.
Yeah. Let's start off with perhaps an obvious question, but I think one that the fans are really keen to understand more. And that is, what does the role of a sporting director actually entail, and what does it cover?
Well, I think it's become a little bit of a mysterious position, certainly on our shores, because it's been done a different couple of ways, and it's also done with different titles. And I think ultimately it's important that internally and externally there's some understanding and some clarity on what it is, because, like I said, it can be seen as slightly differently. For Sunderland, it's about having a person with the autonomy and the responsibility for the football department, which incorporates therefore all the different football levels that we have, and then all the support providers within that framework, to try to bring everyone under one philosophy and one strategy. Whereas it has been done at other clubs where it's been more of a recruitment orientated position, and that has worked for some clubs. It's not worked for some clubs. I think what you're starting to see is an emergence of the role in the type of guys that it is now for us, been done at similar other clubs like Dan Ashworth at Brighton would be very similar in terms of his remit, which is probably more closely aligned to some of the structures you find in Central Europe. Ultimately, it's looking after the short, medium and long term aspirations of the club. you've got obviously people then working on all those different sort of timelines. Obviously, ultimately, we have a head coach working on the short-term nature of it. But one of the things we wanted to try to ensure with the head coach position is we also had someone who's really, really passionate about helping build the legacy for the future.
Mm-hmm. And if we were to look at it perhaps like a family tree, if you like, of the football club, you've got the ownership at the top, and then would it be yourself looking after football issues and then Jim Rodwell looking after the business side? Is that how simple it would be split?
Yeah, I think that you'll see a developing executive team that has to work collaboratively. I think one of the most important thing is that whilst you obviously want to have a football department, and a football department moving forward, it has to move forward with all the other departments of the football club, and it has to be joined up from you guys doing the commentary and the games and the punditry, understanding where the club's trying to go to, all the way through to the commercial and marketing team, understanding what they're selling and why they're selling it. I think that's really, really important. I think often the clubs can get very fragmented because you've obviously got different physical sites. You might then have the sort of the football culture that might be, well, you stay at the stadium and we'll stay at the training ground and battle lines are drawn almost situation. What we're trying to do is we're trying to bring the football club back together a little bit closer to ensure that everyone understands what the project is and the purpose is, and then we can all get on with our jobs. But I think, in essence, the summary you gave is probably a fairly accurate summary. I think it's the same. The clubs get so big now. I think it's the same with the sporting director, head coach position. I see it very much as a collaboration. Yes, I have to appoint the head coach, certainly, but at the same time, you have to have a really close working relationship with that person, because it's the absolute necessity is to obviously win on the Saturday, Tuesday merry-go-round. And the job's got so big for a head coach nowadays. It's not possible for them to look after all the elements. And me and Lee were having that conversation this morning, just a couple of simple things that cropped up. You look at that on a business context and a club context, the old structure with less head count within a business, smaller academy, smaller different teams, is probably not capable for anyone to be able to manage all of that in one single position as a chief exec. So it's just expanding that to create a little bit of an executive board, and everyone can take responsibility for a segment of it, but all come together for the collective good.
Christian, on the footballing side of it, then you just touched on working alongside Lee Johnson. In terms of, like, the fans again might ask, so whose job is it going to be looking in terms of the players looking to come in now? Is it a case of Lee Johnson will assess the squad, looking at the January window in a few weeks' time? He might come to you and say, for instance, I might need a left back or a quick winger type of thing. Is it up to you then to try and go out and source these, or work alongside Lee and then try and get the lads in, to take the pressure off him in a way, let him concentrate on what he's doing on the current squad training side of it, and let the other lads, whether it be a head of recruitment when they come in, or yourself?
Yeah, I think ultimately the first team playing squad can't contain any players in there that are not of the preference of the head coach. So there's obviously, and again, it's newsworthy because it creates conflict, and conflict provides something to discuss. And you see these football clubs where somebody somewhere has had this player brought in that the manager, head coach doesn't want, and then therefore someone sold the head coach doesn't want. You have to create something that's collaborative. So it's slightly different context at the minute because you're starting this project off. So that's going to be different to maybe in the future. The future will look like having a head of recruitment to manage the recruitment process, and there's a recruitment process around capturing the information, the football intelligence within the marketplace, and then moving all the way through to a sort of select and engage phase, of which the head coach would come in the select and engage phase. Now, he will have to, with the football club at the minute, help us to create the profiles of the positions linked to the football philosophy. And we don't at the minute have those in any great depth how he'd like them. So the head coach is going to identify sort of the areas which he feels are weakness and the areas which we think we can improve in. And that's ultimately has to be his judgment call, because he's responsible for that short-term Saturday, Tuesday. What we then have to do is have a system and process behind that to be able to try to identify talent, make sure that we've got a balance in terms of identifying and being able to put some analytic measure on external talent and internal talent. So don't overlook what's in your building just because it looks a little bit nicer because it's outside and you don't know it. And that'll be through 3 or 4 different processes. So he'll be able to say, look, I like this player, put him into the system. What does the system say about that player? Versus maybe the recruitment team have identified another player that nobody knows. So what we don't want it to be is it can't just be one strand and one viewpoint. It's got to be multiple strands coming into it. But then ultimately, when it gets to that decision, it'll be the head coach, myself, and the head of recruitment thrashing out a discussion to come up with, okay, what's the best choice? And I think sometimes it'll be the head coach will say, but I really want this one.
Yeah.
As long as that fits the medium to long term goal, and obviously it depends on the contract length,
Yes.
then obviously we have to get the players that the head coach wants. I think sometimes in this situation as well, the head coach might want a player, but another player comes up within the select and engage phase. He actually goes, well, I actually prefer that one.
Yeah, nice, yeah.
And there you go. You've got to get a balance. You can't just allow players to come into the club and then not going to meet the next stage of the club, especially if the club is signing players on 3-4 year contracts.
Yeah.
But at the same time, has to be fit for purpose, and Lee has to believe in the team and the squad that he's got at his disposal every Saturday and every Tuesday.
Yeah. Not getting that. And so in terms of just thinking there, Lee, for instance, might think, there's a player there who can do the job for us now to get us promoted. But as you say, he might not, in terms of longevity moving forward, he might be 28, 30 odd year old. So in terms of sell on, that's not going to be there with that player. But you then might say, well, we've got another lad who's a similar ilk who's 23 year old. So there's a long future ahead with the club possibly.
Yeah, there's so many scenarios that can play out with it, and I think the context at the minute, for example, is that the club is absolutely determined to try to get a number 1 and number 2 spot in this league. No one's given up on that objective, and rightly so. But then it's what does the team need? So we make a judgment in a minute on what the team needs. And then it's a case of what can fit that.
Yeah.
And it might be we have to take short-term options. It might be find a long-term option. But I think it's just getting that balance between maybe a situation where the head coach wants the short-term option, but we sign him for longer than we need to, and therefore we end up with the baggage of players in contract that are not part of maybe the plan long-term.
A couple of year deals sat around the building.
And it doesn't then make sense for anyone, because ultimately, as much as people will always say, players have a financial motivation, we all have a financial motivation. You don't find too many players who are happy sat around doing nothing, in my opinion. So it's getting something that fits for everyone, and it's just being sensible about having a process, having discussion, and having clarity about what you're trying to get. And the rules of engagement are set out within the structure of how people do their roles.
It just touching on the structure there as well. In terms of recruitment, which Danny touched upon as well, does this mean there's going to be recruitment to help with recruitment? Are you going to be having more people employed to help with it and the mechanics of the data analytics and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're always trying to predict the future, and I think data and analytics are great for reviewing, but pretty much they don't very often tell you anything you don't really know. It probably confirms stuff for you. The power in the data and analytics is predicting the future and projecting what might happen. That's the ultimate skill, that you bring a player in who may be performing at a certain level, but we do certain things and we coach a certain way and we deal with them in a certain way that all of a sudden that improves performance. The football system is littered with players that moved from one club to another club, and people go, oh, that's interesting, and all of a sudden they accelerate because they're in a different environment. I have a little saying, a plant don't grow in a dark room. So sometimes by changing the environmental factors for that player, and it might be the training ground, the physical nature of the training ground. It might be that if they come to Sunderland, it's the size of the club, and they all of a sudden feel that confidence for playing that size of the club. And it might be the way the coach trains the players, gets more out of them. But it's trying to find players that are going to fit that model, and then we're going to be able to hopefully accelerate their learning and their development. Ultimately, if they perform well in the team, they're potentially going to be worth more as an asset for the football club, and therefore the project becomes more sustainable.
And this project sounds like it's changing the landscape here behind the scenes at the football club. Just how soon, or what will the first changes be that the fans will see?
I think you're starting to see from a football philosophy perspective that the team that's played Saturday and Tuesday has played a slightly different way. It's not going to be an overnight change. I think Lee's intimated within his interviews that he's done post-match and pre-match that there's some elements of the game model that we want to try to change. We certainly want to try to be a more progressive attacking team. It's got a slightly quicker press to try and turn the ball over. So you're certainly going to see that quite early on the pitch. I think that's evident from last night's game. I think behind the scenes, the fans are hopefully going to be able to see a shift in the dynamic of how we go about doing our business. and the infrastructure that's here from a personnel perspective. I think, there's a lot to be said about buildings, and there's a lot to be said about the physical infrastructure, but ultimately we're a people business. All the key things are between people, discussing things with people, whether that's players and staff, or staff and staff. That's ultimately what we're all paid our money to do. So I think what we're trying to do is obviously hire a infrastructure of people which obviously can drive performance and try to produce a performance culture here, which is obviously going to demand high standards. And from that, hopefully you'll see better results with the academy programme, with the operations, with the medical and performance, and ultimately on the pitch.
Before we come round to speaking more about the academy, you spent 14 years at Birmingham City. And
I'm starting to feel really old when people say that.
Yeah, and 9 of them were as academy manager as well. So you've been working in football for quite some time. What was your honest opinion of Sunderland before this job was even on the horizon? What's the perception of Sunderland, and how do you think Sunderland's ended up where they are?
Well, I think it's difficult to put one thing on why Sunderland's ended up where it's ended up. I think if you look at its sort of actuality versus potentiality, there's probably not another football club in the country that's got such a difference between where it is and where it could be. Because the reason that I came here is because I absolutely truly believe this could be a top 6 Premier League team, because everything about it could be top 6 in the Premier League. Now that's not going to happen overnight. And I suppose there'll be a lot of fans that will be listening to this, will be sat at home or going home after a match thinking, how the hell did we get here? And sometimes that happens in the cycle of an organisation. It's happened to other clubs. Wolves have gone that sort of route and migrated back to the top.
Leeds
would have done exactly the same. So I think, unfortunately, that they always say, obviously, winning something's easy, but then winning it again is more difficult. And I think it's that sustained ability to perform at a high level is obviously the thing that everybody looks for in these competitive sporting environments. And for one reason or another, ownership changes, personnel changes, a complacency maybe sometimes with the fact that, if you've operated at the top, then it's just an expectation you operate at the top and then it can catch you out. I don't see anything that I've seen in my opening week that says this is the reason Sunderland's happened, because I've just met so many people who are absolutely motivated to see Sunderland back at the top. I can't speak for the story really that's happened before I got here, but what attracts me to the project is that you have got all those things in place, and there is a change of philosophy at the top of the business that says this is the direction they want to go, and I think it shows how powerful that is. Not necessarily because I've come here, but I think when you look at the calibre of head coach that we've managed to recruit, who could easily be operating in the league above, for him to look at the project and all the information that we gave him around what we were trying to do and how we were trying to do it, for him to come here instead of maybe waiting and taking one of them options, I think speaks volumes about how powerful Sunderland is as an attractive property. Ultimately, I think we have to do the same with the players. I think the general consensus, I think, is that Sunderland's been a place where the contracts have been quite positive for players in the past, and then I think therefore there's been a disconnect with the fans because maybe they haven't seen some of the basics that they want. I've been in a couple of taxi journeys in my opening week, and I think every taxi driver has been a Sunderland fan, and all they want is, like a lot of fans, they want to see the team work hard and they want to turn up and watch some attractive football. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Danny, you played in the Premier League for Sunderland, and you've seen us fall down the leagues as well. Yeah. Just touched upon it with KRISTJAAN as well, but it's chalk and cheese, isn't it, where the club was?
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you say, played here 5 years. I had 3 of those in the Premier League, 2 in the Championship, and you'll have seen the stadium, the facilities, the training ground, and that. And when that place is rocking on a match day, if you've got one of the big teams coming into town, and it's unbelievable. And obviously, when we played the likes of our rivals down the road, Newcastle, for me, as I say, the big derby was the 2-1 win when Kieran Richardson scored that free kick, and I've never heard noise like it. So everything's there in terms of the fan base and that, if we can get the place going and get it going in that right direction.
Yeah, that's the thing. When people get employed at the club, we often get wheeled out to interview them or meet them at the ground or whatever. And over the last 6 months or so, we've been telling people what it's the potential of the noise inside the ground, and to really get a sense of the people of Sunderland, and not being able to do that because of obvious reasons this year. Such a shame, but It must be something you really want to see a full house again at the Stadium of Light.
Oh yeah, unfortunately, I suppose it's just geographically, I've only been to the Stadium of Light once, and it was a number of years ago. It might have been in the Premier League, and the atmosphere is incredible. My actual first memory of Sunderland was I'm a Derby fan by origin, and I always remember going to Roker Park as maybe a 12, 13-year-old and looking at the end, which would have been the opposite, the away end behind the goal, and it was just like a sea of people. It was just something incredible I'd never seen before as a kid, because I think it was like open top almost.
Or the ball end at the far side.
Yeah, the far end was just like an abyss of people, and I was like, you're the little kids done there, and that memory always sticks in my mind, because I think it's like the emotion of the match day and everything. That's what I think about when the phone rings and says, like, we'd like to offer you the job to come to Sunderland. It's like, so of course that's going to be extremely exciting, and to be there with my family for the club I work at, to be in that type of environment is going to be great. But ultimately there's a lot of hard work to be done before that's going to materialise on and off the pitch from a pandemic perspective. But also it would be fantastic for the fans to be able to come in to see a team playing attractive, positive, forward-thinking football, and hopefully it's something they can be motivated to want to come back to the stadium.
Does the fans not being in the stadium give you perhaps a bit of time to get things right on the pitch, or with new players or players that maybe if you stop the live stream, maybe. I think fan base here is very popular, so the team's very popular, isn't it? So they're going to want to watch the team now. So I think from that perspective, I don't think you need or deserve the time. I think it is what it is. Everyone that's works in the football industry for a number of years, experienced people. They know what it is and what it isn't. I think, like I said, all we're asking for at the minute is a little bit of open-mindedness to the change. It's quite a bit of a shift. We're not just replicating what's been done before on or off the pitch. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time for that to embed within the fabric of the football club. But hopefully, maybe by the time the fans are allowed back in, they're going to come back and see something different than the last time they came. And obviously, the more attractive it is and the more entertaining it is, the more we're going to turn up. Yeah. The more that turn up, the better the atmosphere is going to be, and the more everyone's going to want to turn up at that stadium. Yeah. So I think from that perspective, it's our jobs, isn't it, to get them back wanting to come, almost with that feeling on a Friday morning like it's match day tomorrow, rather than maybe just I've got my season ticket, I need to go. So I think that's the task in hand, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's just shifting the cloud which has been over the stadium for too long, if you know what I mean, in terms of whatever goes on off the pitch for me, and then ultimately it comes down to that 90 minutes on a Saturday, which gets the atmosphere heading back in the right direction, doesn't it? Can't be 3 points at 5 o'clock on a Saturday evening and everyone's that little bit happier going back home with a beer or two in them.
Yeah, it's symbiotic as well within the city. If the club's doing well, everyone in the city seems to be happier, and businesses seems to be booming and stuff like that. You must have seen it at Birmingham as well.
Yeah, I think it's a unique place, isn't it? Because you've just got such a high percentage of the population goes to the game. So from that, I think that's why people always say Sunderland's so unique, because even in League One, the attendances were incredible. Yeah. They'd be getting more than Championship clubs. Yeah. And probably have stuck through and attended when maybe
it's been tough.
The sensible approach was to stay at home. I'm not sure, but that's the dedication of that fan base, isn't it? And ultimately, the fan base are going to be integral to making a sustainable structure. Yeah. Because we all know from what's happened over the last 9 months that, number one, it's a very, very dull place to go and watch football when there's no fans there. Yeah. There's very little in terms of momentum shifts. You don't get that external motivation from the crowd swell. So I think the players have obviously missed them massively. I think everybody around the infrastructure that has to turn up to be part of the match day misses the fan base, and we all know that there's a financial element towards obviously our industry. And if we can put a more entertaining product on which engages people to want to come, more people come, more revenue in the football club, we can do more things on the pitch, we can do more things with the infrastructure, we can do more things with the community. So it's a win-win solution for everybody, but we have to do our part. And I think I think this is just in football in context, there's just too many, or there's too much of a notion of thought, which is just that, almost that fans will turn up whatever. It doesn't really matter what we do, they're going to come.
Take it for granted.
Take it for granted, yeah, definitely. And I think this has been a real eye-opener from that perspective.
On SAFC Unfiltered, we like to get to know the people a little bit better. You're obviously a football man, Christian, but is there anyone in world football, or perhaps any clubs you look at in world football and think, they've got a great model and they've got a great infrastructure, great style of play, they've got everything right?
I don't know if there's one. I've got a lot of admiration for the German clubs. I think the ownership model in Germany, although it's obviously often talked about in terms of it might disadvantage them, I think you see a more club-orientated club, Traditionally, a club is something that involves all those members, isn't it? I'm not so sure the football in England really, includes the fan base in terms of it being a club. I think in Europe, I think with the infrastructure of the football department, like I said, sporting director would be a commonplace, an executive board would be a commonplace. I like the model over there. I like the style of play that you get at, like the Red Bull teams, the Ralph Rangnicks of this world, with their type of play. And I think they've demonstrated that you can have a sustainable programme and perform at the highest level, because they've always got teams in the Champions League at the top end, but yet they wouldn't have the natural capital investment that from maybe a foreign owner, which obviously underpins a lot of the football in England.
Danny, as an ex-player, are you conscious of what's happening above you in the football infrastructure of a club?
Yeah. I think you take note. Obviously, you listen to the local radio, or you see the papers and what's going on, and the situation we're in at the minute here. I don't think it's any secret that there's possibly a takeover or an investment possibly happening. So you're always aware, but at the same time, you're trying to concentrate on what you get paid to do, which is to go out and perform. Obviously, on a match day, Saturday afternoon, for that 90 minutes, put your best in for the club and do what you've wanted to do, really, as growing up as a kid. As Christine says, people want to do it, they want to get into football clubs, and you want to go out there and playing for a club like this. Certainly you want to go out there and give it your all, and that's what the fans ask for at a place like this. If you're giving the work rate and you're putting it in, and that's all they can ask for, really. But yeah, certainly you keep an eye on what's going on up top, but you just try and concentrate on doing your job, what you get paid for.
And does it have to be as transparent, the grand plan, to the players as it can be to the fans as well, for everyone to be on the same hymn sheet?
I don't see any reason why not. I mean, the strategy and the plan, if you like, we should be proud of the strategy and plan. And why would you hide the strategy and the plan from people that are part of the club? Day one when I got here, the first meeting I had was with the players to say, look, this is the structure. This is how it's going to be. We want the players to be open-minded to the benefits this can have for them in terms of maybe improving the provision on and off the pitch to make them the best they can be. Ultimately, if they perform better, they got the opportunity to obtain and receive a higher remuneration and contract, either here or we sell them and they move somewhere else, which can improve their family life. So I don't see where the negative is. Everybody's the same, aren't they? We're all employed by the club to perform our job to the best of our ability. My big sort of task this week is communicating that out. It's very, very difficult to get everyone in one moment, but obviously there's a lot of individual meet and greets and conversations. I met the players last week in the morning. I did an academy Zoom on Monday night with all the parents from the Zoom. I've met the 18s today, I'm meeting the 23s tomorrow, and then we've got a training ground meeting at 3:00. So my ambition is by the end of this week, everyone will understand the sort of strategic direction that we're going, that they can get behind it, because ultimately I've sat in their seat before and I know it's going to be, well, what exactly is going on? Who is this guy? And what exactly is his plan for what we're going to do? Because the same as the players, they've all got wives, girlfriends and families. They'll all have anxiety over what the changes are going to be. And trying to manage that psychological safety is really, really important for me. So hopefully, everyone will come into work next Monday with a real understanding of what it is and what it isn't, to a degree. And then we've got to work together to create it. I can't sit in this lovely room here and construct a plan and do it all on my own. I can just help the cohesiveness of everybody together. And then, like I said, it's going to be it's quick to go down, isn't it? But it takes a little bit longer to get up, and we understand that.
And that means you might have to come on something like this a little bit more regularly. Is that all right with yourself? Are you happy to communicate that yourself, or do you want Lee Johnson to do that?
I think it's how you can communicate that to the fans with this clarity. I think you leave the space. Ambiguity exists there because we maybe don't communicate with the fan base, and then you've got to make sure that you do it well. That you don't then create more ambiguity by well, what did he mean by that? So I think these types of things are fantastic, whether it's a formal interview, whether it's the podcast, whether it's getting out there and having discussions with people. You know, I'm explaining the strategy to the taxi driver on the way to the station because he's a Sunderland fan, and I see it as my duty to tell him what we're doing.
Yeah.
I don't see what am I going to tell him that, you know, he's going to hopefully shut the door and go, well, thank God we've got someone who's maybe some sort of semblance of an idea about how this is going to pan out. I think that's part of the duty.
Yeah. So you know, touched on there, you've had a Zoom meeting with some of the academy parents and stuff and that, and then just looking now at speaking about the academy and the graduates, and at the minute we've got the likes of Dan Neil pushing. Jack Diamond last night had a good game. Elliot Embleton is perhaps a little bit more advanced in them. He was at Grimsby a couple of seasons ago with us, and getting some more of these lads in now. We've got the Category 1 academy here. You've obviously worked in academies for years now. Are you coming into this place assessing it and thinking that's a route we need to go down now in terms of recruitment for the area? The catchment area is massive in the northeast in terms of ourselves, Newcastle, Middlesbrough further down the road, trying to get these lads in and then obviously pushing them into the first team, as well as adding to the squad from you know, outside of the club. But the main aim will be moving forward as well, is trying to get some of these younger boys pushed into the first team squad.
Yeah, I think my appointment should hopefully give everyone from a youth development perspective a comfort, because I'm obviously an advocate of young players. I think we have to get the structure and the process right for them to move through and progress into the first team.
Yeah.
It can't be too easy. I've seen it be too easy before, previous clubs I've worked at. That doesn't help. It looks great, but doesn't help.
Yeah.
I've also seen it extremely hard, and that doesn't help. So it's getting the right balance and having the right processes. Ultimately, I think when you've got a sporting director position, it lends itself to managing that a lot easier, because those decisions and that process is something that's led by myself rather than being led by a manager, if you like.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have to make sure the manager's comfortable with it. One of the reasons that we felt Lee was the best candidate was because some of the stuff that I've worked on previously, his stuff was very similar.
Right.
Now, what you don't want is groupthink, where you just get together with the other person and you think this is a great idea, but everyone else thinks it's the worst thing since sliced bread. So it's about us combining and then pitching it to the staff, and then getting a critical eye on it to say that would or wouldn't happen. So one of the important things in the next stage of my work here is going to be aligning the strategy to the culture. Because what you can't do is go, well, I'm quite successful at Birmingham, I'll cut and paste that, drive it 3.5 hours up the road, because it's different.
Yeah.
And you have to respect the fact it's different. But I think with Lee, we've got a squad composition model that's divided the squad into 4 age brackets,
right.
And we've got benchmarks on how many players should be in each of those thresholds.
Okay, so it's almost quarters.
Yeah. So what it does, it lends itself naturally. So it forces us to have to adhere to the plan, so you don't get caught off track, and it provokes conversation to say, look, well, if you sign this player, that's another one in our prime category. We haven't got enough in the breakthrough category.
Got you. Yeah.
You know, so at the minute, if you looked at the squad, through no fault of the players, there's a lot at the top end.
Yeah.
And there's not so much at the bottom end.
Coming through, yeah.
So over the time, it's recruiting and making decisions to get that closer to that model.
Yeah.
It's having a lean squad, a lean competitive squad that gives opportunity for young players to get into it.
Yeah. And then, so the model, I mean, obviously with the manager coming and changed the formation last night, for me it was a 4-3-3, where all season we've been 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 under Phil Parkinson. Now you can see he's trying to shift to a back four, whether it be 4-4-2 or whatever we go. Will that then filter down to the academy teams, the 23s, the 18s? Will he want them to play in the same model and the same sort of formations, really, for when if they do take the step up into the first team? Do you think is that the way we'll go in that as well?
There will, yeah. I think you have to be very careful with this notion about formation.
Yeah,
it's ultimately about the principles by which the players have to perform, and then if they're skilled at the principles, they'll be able to play in any formation, because there should be enough depth and understanding by coming through the system to understand that. So I think the Lee's got 3 or 4 playing shapes that are his preference, which fit within the philosophy of play that we've sort of agreed on for the direction of this club. Obviously, the 23s need to have a certain amount of exposure to that, because that's the natural step up.
Yeah.
In the 23s group, there's 4 categories, because you've got the boys who are just on the edge of the first team.
Yeah.
You've got the boys below who might not quite on the edge, but they're the same age, so they might be going out on loan. So you've got to manage those with a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
You've got the second year pros, first year pros who are just into it, that's their sort of games programme.
Yes.
And then you've got the best 16, 17 year olds who are playing up in the 23s.
Yeah.
So managing the 23 squad is really important, because it's not just one squad, it's four small squads, and it's doing the right thing for each of them.
Yeah.
So that top group of 3, 4, 5 players, they need to know the head coach's philosophy, play, culture, what's the dressing room like. So we need to expose them to that in some shape or form.
Does that mean Lee will be meeting with the younger players?
Oh, he'll definitely be meeting the younger players, yeah. I mean,
I'm bringing him
that's
over
not
to
something that
first
you
team
even got to say to him, look, can you do it?
Yeah.
He's knocking on the door saying, look, I need to get engaged with these people,
Right.
because he understands that also to coach people, you have a relationship with people. You know, these are not, you know, all these are not magnets on a board. I've got to try to get to know all these people at the training ground to be able to hopefully be able to have trustful conversation with them. They're going to come the direction we want them to come to.
Yeah, that was my thoughts. I mean, obviously, in terms of how Lee wants us to play, whether we're going to go pure football, and you've seen it, even Oldham last night, they got the centre half splitting in the box. Now we're talking a League Two side. I know Harry Kuehl likes to go that way, and a lot of managers seems to be going that way because it's filtering down for me from Manchester City, Liverpool, and everyone wants to play this centre half splitting in the 6-yard box and getting the ball out. Now, if you've got Lee Johnson who wants to do that with the first team, you've got a 23s coach who's get the centre half squeezed up and shell it long. Do you know what I mean? And then when they come to the first team squad, then it's all alien to them, isn't it, coming in?
Definitely. I think, like I said, it's having that philosophy and those principles that go all the way through. Because what you want to produce is you want to have an identity. This is how Sunderland plays, and that would be one thing when you mentioned the question before about what was your view on Sunderland. When I've seen the youth teams play and I've seen the first team play, I'm a little bit. I don't understand what the identity is. Now, for me, whether I like it or not, smashing it up long, second ball, scoring goals is a way of playing. It's not my preference, but if every team played like that, I could see the identity. We're trying to place a different identity. We want to have a work ethic and a press, which is something the fans can be proud of, that they can link to, because they're saying, well, hang about, I've been to work all day and I've worked hard, let me see you work hard on a Saturday. So that being demonstrated in the team, I think you see even in the game last night, certainly the first half, and it is new for the players because they played to some different principles. Yeah. You know, the amount of transitions and turnovers in the first half, in and around the top third of the pitch, was more than I've seen in the 10 games I've watched previously. And hopefully that's something that fans can identify with and go, yeah, I'm having a little bit of that because that's how we think we should play. Yeah. The stuff with the ball is trying to be a little bit more progressive, and trying to be a little bit more in control in our attacking play. For me, our team in this league tends to dominate the games. Yeah, possession-wise, But then all the work that I think Lee's got focused on at the minute is all around that final
what
third.
You do when you've got the ball.
How it can be. So I think if you'd have compared Saturday's game to last night's game, I saw a lot less crosses from last night's game that were just sort of put in the box. Yes. Whereas I think there was a little bit more in terms of working it in and around the box, when to change the play and come back through a pivot in midfield. And when to try to get them shots off and those combinations, and I think we looked more of a threat. Again, different teams and everything else. Yeah. But last night was a really good exercise. I think it was a really competitive game for us, and probably the best type of game we could have had for Lee's second game. Yeah, like an extended training game, really, wasn't it? And trying things, as you say. Oldham were a good team, weren't they? They played football. And also, with all due respect, we went 1-0 down. Yeah. So for the team to come back, and also come back in a manner of control. There was no panic. Yeah. There was no slinging it forward and we'll sort of, hang about and be at Oldham away. Yeah? They just carried on playing. Yeah. We need a little bit more control, but we have to give the coach time with the players. It's so hard at the minute because there's not enough training sessions between the games. Yeah, it's quick turnovers, isn't it? Recovery, go again. One session, prep session, and you're going again. So it will take him slightly longer. That's not me making an excuse. That's just me saying I understand how it works. Yeah.
Going back to yourself, KRISTJAAN, you mentioned work ethic there. I imagine you'd be based up at the academy 5 days a week and then going to most games, would you?
5 days a week?
Well, you've got
that just shows you the disconnect straight away between your department and our department.
But what do you do away from football to relax? Do you play golf or anything like that? Are you a family man?
Well, I'll be honest, that's been one of my big challenges. I've got a little collection of mentors that I rely on, for that critical eye on me as well, from different walks of life. And that's one of the things that I'm always getting tested on in terms of getting that work-life balance. I've got a young family, I've got twins, they're 4 in February. So they take up a lot of my time and they're a fantastic distraction away from the football industry. So from that perspective, spending time with them is number one on my agenda, because it is a all-encompassing career, because you're ultimately involved in something which is not really work, is it? I mean, we're fortunate enough to be involved in something which would be really a hobby for many people, and it's our full-time work. So that does is that can extend into all hours of the day because you've got such a passion for it, and you don't have that sort of 9 to 5 clock off mentality. So trying to manage that is something I've always struggled with a little bit. But that's not to say that's a positive, because I think you have to work smart. You have to have the energy at the right times in the week and the right periods in the season to be able to do your job properly. And just go into the training ground between 7 and 7 every day, 7 days a week, people will go, oh, he's fantastic. That's also a negative, because you can't be at your best. And when you're in my type of position, everybody wants you at your best. No one wants you when you're tired, and no one wants you when your kids are kept up. No one cares about that, because they want you at your best. So you have to try to be your best all the time. Yeah.
Will you be moving to the area then?
I will be, yeah. I've got to prize my lovely wife out of Birmingham. She's Birmingham through and through. We only live a few streets away from her parents. So from that perspective, that's a lovely comfort for her with young children. But it's a commitment that we made when I accepted the job, and I'm really, really fortunate that she's unbelievably supportive of me and my lifestyle, if you like, with the Oldham's away of this world, and then back to the training ground the next day. She keeps me on the straight and narrow.
She's at home with the twins.
She's at home with the twins today. Yeah, I caused the chaos yesterday because I FaceTimed her from the beach, and the kids suddenly want to go to the beach.
Oh yeah.
So she had a day of trying to control those two, because all they wanted to talk about was going to the beach. So
got some lovely beaches in the northeast.
Yeah, to be fair, I've had a couple of lovely walks last couple of mornings, making some phone calls. It's been beautiful. Yeah. So we'll move up to the area. I think you have to commit. I think that's something that we want to say to the players in the future. You've got to commit. So if you're not going to do it yourself, you can't put it on others, can you?
And Danny never went back. He stayed up here.
Yeah, no, I've been.
That's how good it is, mate.
There you go. Trips here and there, but I've found my way back up to the northeast. And I love it up here. So I'm through Durham, and no, it's great.
Yeah. So Danny's tradition on this podcast. If you are on, maybe you're not aware, but he does a quiz with everyone on.
I've been aware. Yeah, I did listen to Jim's podcast before I came.
He didn't do so well on the quiz.
He got one, didn't he?
He got one, and for someone
that's
who's been
highly
on
worrying.
television,
Jim's a very bright intellectual man.
Yeah, he's rooted to the relegation zone at the minute, Jim, isn't he?
The top of the league at the moment, Lyndon Gooch. So, he's injured at the moment. I imagine he's brushing up on his general knowledge while he's sat on the couch at home. Luke on 9, on 3, and then the rest of the rabble on about
all on 2. Yeah, so I say Lyndon.
Have you had a 0?
I don't think we've had a 0.
No, we haven't had a 0.
You had 1? Jesus.
Yeah, just Jim on 1, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Lyndon came in, didn't he, saying, "No, I'll be happy if I get 1," and he got all 5. So
I need to go and find Mr. Gooch now and come help me out.
himself. Right, are you prepared for this, Christian?
I'm prepared. I'm nervous.
Come on, then.
There's every chance I'm going to look like a fool here.
Don't worry.
They're only tough if you don't know the answer. Right. So, mixed bag, general knowledge. Question number 1. Where is the smallest bone in the human body located?
I think these should have been multiple choice. Smallest bone. Hand.
The ear. It's an ear. Yeah, it's the stapes, apparently.
I think I knew that one.
Yeah, do you know that one?
I think I've heard that one before.
Right. That way you were touching your ear.
I was giving you a clue there.
Question number 2. What was the title of the first Bond movie in which Daniel Craig played the role of 007? He's not a Bond fan by looking at his face now.
Do you like films? Do you watch films, Christian?
Yeah, I do like a film to relax, yeah.
Have you got a favourite film of all time?
Favourite film of all time? I don't think you can go too far wrong with Back to the Future, can you?
Back to the Future films.
It's a good shout.
Yeah. You get 3 for 1 in that deal as well. Sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, what was the title of the first Bond movie in which Daniel Craig played the role of 007?
I can only think of one Bond movie film title, and it could be like a Sean Connery. Time to Kill.
Is that even a Bond title?
It's A View to a Kill is the one I was thinking of. A View to a Kill.
There you go. Half a mark, surely.
No, you had the wrong Bond. It was Casino Royale. Casino Royale. Right, still got 3 to go.
3 to go. Come on, you only need 1 to match Jim. Come on.
Question number 3. In the decathlon, how many of the events are track events?
Ooh. I think the famous decathletes.
2. It's 4.
4?
It is the 100 metres, the 110 metre hurdles, the 400 metres, and then they finish with the 1500 metres.
It's a good job that wasn't a football question.
Yeah.
Come on, me.
Right.
Cancel this podcast immediately.
Geography. Question number 4. What is the capital city of Chile? I'll give you a clue on this one.
Go on then.
It's the name of one of the most famous football stadiums in the world. Is part of one of the football stadiums in the world. The first.
That's a clue.
Yeah.
I've been so nice to you since I got here. I thought we connected really well. You've given me some of the
Begins with an S.
weirdest questions.
Begins with an S.
No idea.
Santiago.
Bernabeu.
Yeah, Santiago is the capital city of Chile. Yeah.
Last one.
And number 5, cooking question.
This needs to be like my shoe size or something. It's the only one I'm going to get right.
What you like in the kitchen? Do you do a bit of chefing? No. Oh, this doesn't bode well.
The football industry, they got the chef at the training ground. It's such one of the biggest perks of the job.
Right. Beginning with the letter T, what is the name of the green herb used in French cuisine which has a licorice flavour to it?
Time. I can only think of one. No.
Tarragon. He dived in, didn't he?
I did.
Let's hope you're a better sporting director than you are doing general knowledge quizzes.
Well, I can't be a worse one than the quiz. That's what I will say to you guys.
Jim's in the room next door. We'll not let him know on the way out.
I'm going to go back on it. I need to see Jim's questions. I'm pretty sure when I was listening to Jim's in the car, I thought I knew the answers to Jim's questions. I'm pretty sure.
Before we end the podcast, though, Christian, I'm sure you'll want a final message to the fans. But I've got a direct question. I just want a straight answer to it if we can. Can we still do it this season?
Most definitely.
Yeah?
Most definitely.
Yeah?
Most definitely. The squad, I think where they're at the minute, we've obviously had a little bit of a lull, but also the change has been difficult for everyone, hasn't it? And I don't think you should underestimate the change for the players. So, like I said, we have to look forward. Lee's got every confidence that we can do it. Like I said, it's not the best starting position, is it, to start from sort of 9th, but it is.
It could be worse. Could have come in where there's 10 games to go and we're way off it, but there's a long way to go.
There's a long way to go, and everything is geared around that. And I certainly won't want anyone from the fan base to think, it's a sort of it's been given up on in any shape or form, because that is 100% not correct. Yeah. And I think that shows by obviously the calibre of manager you went for. There's no indication that anything other than try to get up.
Well, I'm sure every Sunderland fan listening to this will wish you every success in your role, Christian. Thanks very much for speaking to us this afternoon.
No, thanks, guys. You're welcome. Appreciate it.
So that was Sporting Director Christian Speakman there. He had a lot to say. We obviously had a lot to cover, but I was impressed with what he said, Danny.
Yeah, I think he was quite open, really, wasn't he? I say with the questions we asked him, with looking where he's looking to take the club forward in terms of working alongside the new head coach, and obviously there'll be more people coming into the club with the vacant jobs that are going at the minute. And yeah, I think he's going to have that drive behind him. He can see the size of the club, not just the training ground, the stadium. The fan base, once the fans are allowed back into the stadium, and I think he wants to be a part of that moving forward. And so yeah, interesting times ahead, I think.
Yeah, he covered lots of stuff, and I think if I was a player, and you have been in that position, Danny, would you be excited about the plans he's got in store for the club? I mean, even if you were in one of the very younger groups at the academy, you've got to be excited about the plans ahead.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if we're looking over the last sort of 5-10 years, really, we haven't, the places, we've seen managers coming and going, people in and out of the offices, in the buildings and that, and we just need a bit of stability, really, and you can see where the club are now trying to go, I think, and trying to get things right on and off the pitch is going to be key in trying to get us back to the Premier League. Whether that takes 3-5 years, we don't know. But no, I think it's as I say there, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. With the new head coach, the new sports director, and then as I say, there's going to be more people coming through the door, I'm sure, in the near future. And if I was a part of the youth setup or the 23s pushing, you certainly want to be a part of it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, time will tell, I guess, but we look forward to see any of these developments on the pitch as soon as possible. Right, Danny, that's it for us for this time. Just to mention, he didn't do very well on the quiz, did he?
Oh yeah, you nearly let that slip by there, didn't you? Yeah, he did say beforehand he's not massive on quizzes, didn't he? But you'd have expected him to get 1 or 2. So I think one person who will be happy will be Jim Rodwell, won't he? Propping the leaderboard up at the minute. But none out of 5, not great. But let's hope he moves forward and gets us going off the pitch.
Yeah, that's the main thing, isn't it? That's the main thing. Right then, thanks everyone for listening. We'll speak to you soon.